Acres in the middle of the city, totally undeveloped. It's a natural area where we try to do as little as possible. This park was purchased with money that we got from a 1994 bond referendum. The purpose of these properties is to allow plants and animals a place to live, but we use it for environmental education purposes too. I have school classes out here doing projects or just doing tours with the classes, talking to them about plants and animals and things of that nature. The ecosystem that you're looking at here is dominated by the slash pines. These are the Florida slash pines. They used to cut a V-shaped slash into the trunk. They would drain the sap out, and the sap was used for resin, and you can make turpentine out of it. And that's why they're called slash pines. They used to make the log cabins out of these pine trees, and they even made railroad ties. This is an ecosystem. Traditionally, we call this a pine flatwoods. Pine trees and other low-growing, flat-growing trees, pine flatwoods. This is cocoa plum. This is what happens to cocoa plum when you don't cut it into a hedge, when you allow it to grow. It turns into a small tree. And we don't have any plums on it now, but also when you hedge it, often it doesn't flower, it doesn't get the fruits. These plums, when they are ripe, they're about the size and the color of a black olive. They have a pit, a big stone in the center, but they are edible actually. This is the Florida state tree. Actually, one of the cheapest, hardiest palm trees you can get. And hurricane-wise, I think if any tree at all deserves the description of a hurricane-resistant tree, not that anything's ever hurricane-resistant, but these trees are probably among the best. If you go to Publix or Winn-Dixie or wherever, you can buy heart of palm in a can, and it comes from plants like the cabbage palm. That's why it's called cabbage. At the top there, where the green stalks are coming out, the very top, in that area you have about a head-sized piece of tissue, which is the apical meristem to get technical, but you have a head-sized piece of tissue that is edible. And like the Indians will chop it down, you kill the tree doing it, but chop it down, pull it back, and then you can make what they call swamp cabbage soup out of it. Or you can use it for heart of palm. Here's the seeds or the fruits of the cabbage palm. So these are from last year, so they're not good anymore, but this is what it looks like. This, when they're fresh, you can take them, roast them. At least that's what the Indians used to do, maybe still do, and just eat them that way. This is called wild coffee. Now, it is not really coffee, okay? But it is shares some properties with coffee. Mainly it's shade loving, so you'll see it growing all over the place where they've got some shade. It doesn't like the full sun. So if you've got a shady area in your yard where nothing's really growing nicely, this would be a good choice. It gets little white flowers that butterflies love, and then it gets little reddish brown berries that look a little bit, but not really, like coffee beans, and birds love them. So it's a great wildlife plant. It comes in two varieties. This is the shiny leaf. It also comes in the dull leaf. This is by far the most common. The dull leaf is actually relatively rare. We've got it way back in the woods here. I'm not going to take you there, but there's a couple of plants, but it's not a lot. All right, so here we come to one of the really, really special features of our park here. A hole in the ground. We have here a colony of about 35 gopher tortoises. The gopher tortoise is, in the state of Florida, classified as a threatened species. In this burrow, many other animals use it to live in. Everything, there's actually a tortoise frog named just for its association with the gopher frog, I'm sorry, named with association with the gopher tortoise. Sea grape normally doesn't grow this far inland. It's normally a coastal plant, very salt tolerant. That's why it's used a lot there. We get these dropped in by birds, literally dropped in as they fly over. And you know, they're fine, they don't do any harm. You can actually eat the grapes. The grapes can be eaten. You can actually make preserves, jam, jelly out of them. I've even heard adventurous people trying to make wine out of it. I don't know how that went. Let's talk about ficus trees, because ficus trees have not just because of the whitefly, but because of Hurricane Wilma, ficus often has a bad reputation. If you're ever in doubt as to whether or not something is a ficus tree, you can take off a leaf and you'll notice the white starting to form there. It's bleeding white, so to say. On the area where I pulled it off too, if you look there, you can see it's actually starting to drip white. This is a sign of ficus. Now, What a lot of people don't realize is the rubber tree is Ficus elastica. And the rubber tree, what used to be used and harvested for latex to make latex out of, and that's what you're looking at here, basically is this white liquid that's forming. This is the Florida native red bay. This is Persia bourbona. This is a native red bay. You can take the leaves, you can dry them, and then add them to your stew or to your roast or whatever. Now the European bay is the ones you buy at the stores. It has a stronger flavor still, so that's why that one's used, but this is actually the Florida native. This is not a manicured park where people come to play ball and stuff like that. That's a whole different, you can see down the lake at the pavilion, we have a meadow, it's all weeds, intentionally left that way, okay? Even the dead trees we leave standing as long as they're not a danger to the public. We leave them on purpose. There's more life in that dead tree than there is in a living tree. Everything from insects to birds, everything lives there and uses it. So we purposely keep those and don't remove them if we don't have to. If they're close to the pathway here and could pose a danger to the public, then of course we do take them down, but we just drop them in there. We don't move them out. This is heaven for the raccoons. We have snakes. Mostly black racers. I've been doing this job for 13 years here in Coral Springs. I have never seen a venomous snake in Coral Springs. That's really the truth. Anybody know what this is?
It looks like grape.
It is.
Yeah. Is it a real?
This is muscadine grape. This is a Florida native wild grape. It does get the fruits. The fruits are very small and purple. They're about 1/4 the size of your store-bought purple grapes. They're very tasty, very sweet. You can make jelly out of it. This I know you can make wine out of. You can actually buy Florida wine. This right here is being touched with a stick for a reason. This is poison ivy.
Which one? I've never seen it.
In Boy Scouts we learned leaves of 3, let them be. You see 3 leaves? Leaves of 3, they also have a reddish stalk to them. Now we leave it here. We don't really get rid of it because it's a native and it's a good wildlife plant. There's not really any reason to get rid of it, but we don't like to touch it either. And the problem is, what's really tricky is you can touch it 100 times and never have a problem. And then you touch it the 101st time, you suddenly have a problem. It's an allergy to the oil. That's why it's very shiny. There's an oil on the surface. And if you touch it and you break out, then you've got a problem. Usually if I touch it like this, it'll probably not do anything here because my skin is very thick. But if I touch it and then wipe the sweat off my forehead, I'm nailed. If I walk my dog through it and then I pet my dog and then do that, I got it too. This is called perennial swamp fleabane. Fleabane. Everybody know what a flea is, right? And bane means to banish or get rid of.
Get rid of the flea?
So this is a plant that the early settlers would take and they would smear it all over their bodies. It's an insect repellent, a natural insect repellent.
Really?
Yep. So we have here one of the most beautiful spots in Coral Springs, which is our lake and our wetland. Now the wetland right now is doing what a seasonal wetland does. This time of year it dries out. So the wetland is totally dry right now, but that's perfectly normal. In the summertime, when we get the rains coming, it'll fill up. I've actually had that wetland so full and so wet, it actually crested and actually flowed over here into the lake. Now, both of these bodies of water are not connected to any outside water at all. This is all groundwater or rain. The 2 of them are connected, so when it gets too high, it'll flow into there, but that's the only thing. We made this lake in 1996. We built the lake. It's 40 feet deep in the center. So if this lake dries out, we have a drought, okay? There's no question about it. It does fluctuate, like I said. You can see where the shoreline is, where it stops being steep. That's usually where the water is in the summertime. It goes way up. This is another interesting way of looking at nature, and just by knowing a couple small facts, you can understand what might be going on here. So what I mean by that is, if you turn around and look that way, just kind of tell me what you see, just shout it out. Trees, what kind of trees? Tall pine trees. Turn around and look behind me. What's missing?
Pine trees.
Tall pine trees. Okay, so there's something going on here. This is not an accident. I didn't come in this morning and cut all the pine trees down to look good here, okay? There's something happening. We also see what looks like a dead tree there, right? I'll tell you that is a bald cypress. We have them all around the lake down there too. So bald cypress, go bald, in the wintertime. They drop their needles. That's why they call bald cypress. And I have them growing all around the lake. They don't grow here. They don't grow there. They grow all around the lake where, what is around the lake? It's wet. So now I'm starting to understand a couple things. Bald cypress, like it wet. Slash pines, like it dry and sandy. So somehow there's something happening here that's keeping this area wetter than that area, and that's why we have something totally different happening here. We don't have a lake or a wetland here, but we do have about 6 inches under the surface, we have a clay hardpan. It's all clay. So the water doesn't percolate through very quickly, so it sits there. Slash pines don't like that at all. That's why they don't grow there. The cypress trees love it, and that's why they do grow there. And you can actually, if you come over here, you can actually draw an imaginary line right here. Slash pines to the right, no slash pines to the left. Meaning you can actually see, by the trees, you can actually see where the geology turns different. This is called an ecocline, where two things like that clash, but it really is almost a straight line, exactly where one goes and the other doesn't. I hope you enjoyed the tour of the park, and if you're interested, come out and visit in person sometime.